Firstly, thanks for coming on. For those that don't know, Shannon Kara, not only just part of the R4R community, but occupational therapist, clinical director and doctoral student, specialising in nature-based interventions for neurodivergent and intellectual disability populations.
That's right.
You've written a book, which is good here. It's a good book. I've read it, and it weaves together your personal struggle, real-world application, research. But I want to start this interview with a question that you ask some of your clients. What has your body lived through?
Wow, that's a fabulous question, Matt. My body has lived through so much physically, emotionally, and spiritually. As an occupational therapist, I can talk clinically, but from a human perspective, it has lived in fight or flight for a really long time. Yeah, so I guess if we wind back a little bit, I had my son very young. I was 20 and thought that, a successful life meant you bought a house, you got married, you had children, and that's A plus B equals success and happiness. However, what I discovered was living on eggshells and trauma really impacted the way I functioned in my life.
Yep, and I want to take a quote from your book to go into this a little bit further. These are your words. By day, I was a web designer who loved turning messy ideas into clean, usable sites. I was the user-centered professional who could read a client's needs before they ever found the words. At home, that same attunement kept me on high alert. I learnt to read the signs, the change in his footsteps in the hallway, the way his breathing thickened, the way the air in the lounge room went heavy and still before anything was said. My nervous system was permanently tuned in. What followed in that chapter, nothing short of horrific. And maybe it sheds light on how you said you've lived through quite a bit.
It has. And for me coming here today, I haven't really spoken about this to anyone out loud, because it's something that I felt was private and you didn't talk about. And I think that we're starting to normalise what happens at home through domestic violence and naming it and not being ashamed that it happened. But I became very tuned in to other people and I could detect their mood. And when I say they, I mean my family, my husband, my son's mood. And I could almost preempt that I needed to clear out for the day because I didn't cook bacon and eggs the way he wanted it. And so if I was at home and that wasn't served up in the way he expected, he would either throw it across the room or send my son to his room, and that's when the pacing and the spitting in my face and all the other things would happen. So yeah, this tuning in was like my superhero, well, not hero, my super talent at that point in time.
It protected you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it was really hard. You'd go to work and everything's okay, but meanwhile you might have had 2 hours of someone screaming at you because you served up sausages and mashed potato instead of steak and eggs for dinner because that's what they expected. But at work I still had to function. I still had to get to work. I still had to look after my son. I just became this overachiever in keeping everyone at bay, keeping everything down. Yeah.
Just coping as you went on.
Yeah, 100%.
There's two little tangents that came to mind as you were speaking. Obviously, thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
One tangent was that it was also a cycle, right? It was.
Yeah.
It would be quite intense.
Yeah, and this is where, I was working as a web designer for a global company doing, user-centered design, and what I sort of discovered was that, sorry, I've just lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
What was the question you asked me?
That it was a cycle.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I sort of had a career change and shift and became curious about helping people. So I stopped working as a web designer and I moved on to become an occupational therapist. And during that time, I worked at a women's refuge, Corinna House, and I started to understand the cycle of power and abuse. And that's when I saw the pattern. And it unfolded, and I could actually see it plain as day as to we'd go through, the abuse phase, then the apology, and then we'd come back, everything would be fine, and again, we'd keep on going. And at that point, I kept justifying to myself, if I did this better, or if I didn't say that, it would stop. But I learnt the hard way, or the long way, that it took me a long time to discover that it's not going to stop, because I can't change the pattern, it's on the other person. Yeah, so that was a real challenge.
It would have been a challenge. I had a flashback of a stat that just complicates it. I think it's quite a high number. 90% of people who are abused love their partner.
Spot on.
Which, I mean, you're trying to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
While it's not working.
Yeah, and that's the part where I think it takes a woman or a person in an abusive relationship 7 times to actually leave, because they're stuck between that rational thinking of I love this person, but then the emotional, abuse and the lack of safety is just conflicting, and it's just hard to understand and reason with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in these moments, throughout this time, you started to stumble on, without going too far down into the book, but coping mechanisms, like your first iteration of coping mechanisms. How did you said you took yourself out of the environment sometimes. What else? Yeah,
so what I sort of discovered was that my sort of fight or flight response was to go for a walk after dinner, and that gave him time to decompress, but also my son and I would be out exploring together, and he'd ride his BMX and I'd walk, and we'd walk up to where there were horses, and I discovered through that movement and walking that I felt safe, that it was minutes it took me to de-stress, not hours, and it just made me feel freer. So what I was understanding interoceptively, so internally, was that movement helped me to feel safe and regulated, and it returned me back into that regulated state. Yeah. And what was really beautiful at that time was that because we weren't looking at each other, talking at each other, my son and I, he was next to me and we're moving along. The conversations were really natural and we talked about lots of things, and I feel like that experience with him over a long time really cemented our relationship as, mother and child, but also supporting each other through a really yucky situation.
Yeah. I mean, that side on side, that's kind of proven in a lot of places. I know Men's Shed sees it. We certainly see it at R4R.
Yeah.
Where people are walking with each other. But these coping mechanisms, they sounded like they helped.
Yes.
But it also, it sounded like it wasn't enough.
Yeah. So where I sort of became a little bit curious too was that I couldn't think my way out of it. I didn't need more tools. I just needed more. I needed to know more. And I then sort of, was always outside in the garden. And then I wanted to study, well, why is this working for me? So I definitely became curious into wanting to know the science behind it.
But one day, the coping mechanisms, they kind of stopped helping you, didn't they, on a walk with your son?
Yeah, I came to a moment where I felt like the only way out of this situation is if I'm going to die or he's going to kill me. And I kind of froze and I sort of became stuck and
In that moment?
Yeah.
So you had a realisation, the penny dropped?
Yep.
And with that came?
Yeah, I've got to change this. Yeah, I can't stay anymore.
Like a clear as day?
Yep. And so that's sort of when I started my plan of leaving.
And I think it's probably, I didn't actually plan to talk about this, but I think it's probably worth going on a tangent on this. But what does a plan look like?
Yeah, and this is a really tricky thing,
for anyone that might be.
Absolutely. Anyone trying to leave an abusive relationship, be it, emotional, physical, or even financial, that's the most risky time for a person exiting a relationship, is when they're planning to leave. Yeah, and so not giving the cue. So for me, because I was the sole breadwinner, I had to actually plan a longer game to leave. You know, I had to make sure I had money, I had somewhere to go, I had to get everything organised, because if I went back, it would probably end really terribly for me physically.
Yeah.
So I had to leave permanently. So with the help of my family, you know, and my family are very supportive and they could see the signs. They were very supportive in helping me organise a house, remove a list and everything, so I could just do this sweet uplift and be gone. But for people without that, it's really hard. It's hard to escape. It's hard to have money if you've got children to think about their safety and having a plan, you know, whether it's engaging with crisis supports, making sure that you've got your phone charged so that you can call for help, or even having someone in your team, or, you know, as in your family networks, where if you just send an emoji, like, I don't know, making up an emoji like a pineapple, that means that that's your SOS for help and to call the police.
Yep.
Like having plans to that level of detail, because you can't predict what the other person's going to do in that level of crisis.
It's equal parts confronting, but also fascinating that it's kind of like an operation.
It is.
Like a covert operation.
Yeah.
That it just shouldn't be that way, but it obviously is. Where where can people go to get this? Because some people don't think this way. How can they get this help to plan?
I think looking at the crisis centre, so the Women's Crisis Centre, I can't think of the name off the top
That's
of my
all right.
head.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Also contacting, you know, the police. Also, I know places like Carunya House and there's another refuge in town, but they're not crisis accommodation, or even contacting family. But it's like literally having an escape plan or a safety plan for yourself, and making sure that that person doesn't realise what you're doing, because that's when the control starts to happen, or they'll start to block access, and it's really tricky.
Or even tug on the emotional heartstrings of it'll
100%.
be different from now.
Or they'll cut your money off, or, you know, they'll block access, or take away the car keys, or, you know, let down your car tyres. Like, people go to lengths to protect what they control.
Yeah, confronting.
Yeah.
After you had the realisation that you had to go, what happened?
It probably took about 6 months to actually leave. So treading water, you know. And I think, too, the other challenge from my experience was that we were from different cultures. So I'm from a middle-class Australian Canberra local family, and my husband was from New Zealand, so he was Maori. And so abuse and violence is just part of the culture. It's part of that, alpha male, and I'm generalising here. You know, this is my experience. But for him, it was... he was entitled to have this life, and I was going to provide for him, but also violence was normal. It was not uncommon for him to see his dad beat up his mum after coming home drunk from the night on the booze with his family.
Yeah.
Like, that was their norm. So for us, we had this mismatch right from the beginning of what our norms were in our lives and our families.
Yeah. And you've prompted me to think, which was very clearly, I think, articulated, but it also came through your words. You wanted that type of behaviour to stop with you and your son. That's
right. Yeah, and I was really concerned that I couldn't protect him from seeing all of this trauma and the ongoing impact. And while my ex-husband was very smart in doing it, at times when he wasn't home, there were periods when he was home. And even though he'd say, you know, boy, go to your room, he could still hear it, right? Yeah. And so that part of me was like, this needs to stop. I cannot have this intergenerational trauma and abuse continuing. This cycle has to stop. And so it took so much effort and determination to end this relationship, because, you know, ingrained in me was, you've got to be married, you had a child so young, this is what life looks like to be successful.
Yeah.
And so for me then to say that I was this single mum, I felt like a failure. So there was so much complexity to this environment, but at the end of the day, my son was my guiding light. I had to do this for him because I didn't want him to repeat this pattern with his family. And that was the motivating factor in the end.
Yeah, it's clear as day, and kudos to you. When you look back, are you like almost amazed at yourself?
It's more that I've packed away that experience and I choose to not think about it anymore.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say amazed. It was just like, the way I see it, I'm a visual thinker, is I just keep moving forward. I keep propelling. I keep, if I can help one person live a better life, if I can show people that if you don't give up on yourself, you can get through the hard stuff because you've been there before, then that's okay too. So I think for me, it's about just acknowledging, sure, it happened, but not dwelling on it because I'm not my past.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
You are what you do.
Yeah.
You touched a little bit on it, and it would have been really hard for you because you said one of your coping mechanisms was to become this overachiever. You did everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Mm.
And you said also that you had these markers for what a successful life looks like. And then you have to make this decision that, one, acknowledges that you can't keep going. A, you're not this overachiever, whether that's a right or wrong in your mind. And two, that you're going against what your marker for success is at that time, which is, married life.
Mm.
I know when my mum was diagnosed with cancer, I lost a big part of my identity. That just pretty much, to shortly put it, that everything would be okay if you can make it so. I know what it likes to be without a belief structure or identity.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like for you?
Yeah, it was really hard because my role and my identity was, I really don't want to say his name. I was his wife, and that was who I was. Like, I wasn't a person, I was his wife. Yeah. And so for me, not being the wife of this really staunch Maori guy that was well respected, I kind of went, well, who am I as a person and what is my purpose here? And so it took me a long time to figure that out. But through this interesting journey, I feel like I've found who I am as a person and what my role is, and also what my purpose is in life now. It's been very interesting.
Well, I'm glad and again, thank you for going into that, because I do believe that these sorts of stories help people, even if they're not similar. The idea of going through something and overcoming it and becoming a stronger version of yourself is an important narrative that we need to tell ourselves. And you kind of touched on it. So I think, you spoke about it being a new beginning.
Yeah.
What did that new beginning look like? When did you start to feel like you were? I mean, you might still be recovering, but where you walk out, I feel like I'm in my new chapter now.
Honestly, I feel like it's just now. Like in 2026, this is where I feel like everything is coming into alignment, and I feel like I'm meant to be where I am, and it's taken all of that time, so a decade of learning and pivoting and restructuring what I do and how I live, but also being comfortable with myself and going, it's okay, so it's taken a decade.
A decade.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not shocked, because even after my dad's death, and then that was a decade of figuring it out.
That's really interesting, isn't it?
I reckon there's a lot of it's probably because people don't want to deal with hard stuff.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And so if we don't have to wade into the waters to help figure out what's going on in our heads and life's going on, why would we? Until we're forced to, and then we do, and then we're happy we did.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like, I imagine it wasn't a watershed moment where you go, I feel good now. I felt terrible for the past 10 years. It sounds like you built yourself up again.
Yeah. And it's that slow burn, that build, right? It's about, getting my family stable. And then I looked at, well, what brings me joy? And working for the web or the cloud, this invisible thing was not satisfying. Or, I'd invest so much time into like identifying information architecture for a website, and then someone would go, let's just put a red button and put click here. And I'd be just like, oh, my brain is exploding. Like I've got to do something to help people. And so I discovered occupational therapy through my niece was born in tachycardia with a rare genetic disorder, and every 6 weeks they were going to Sydney Children's Hospital, and tumours ate her ulna in her arm. And she had to see occupational therapy for a splint. And I was like, what is this splinting stuff? And this is really interesting, and I want to play with that stuff. And I sort of became curious, and that led me to kiss goodbye my 12 or 13 year career in public service and consulting, and go and study my master's in occupational therapy. And that was sort of my aha, where I was like, you know what, if I can help one person be able to make a cup of coffee and not spill something on themselves, or be able to get their mail because they had anxiety and they couldn't leave the house, then I feel like I'm achieving something when I compare that to working for the cloud and the click here button, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was more satisfying.
What a sliding doors moment.
Yeah.
Where it's a confluence of things, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just obviously exiting one chapter and then something else happening around you that sort of prompted you to go somewhere else. But through your struggle, and it kind of came to me before we went into this interview, but struggle forces us to cope.
Yes.
Sometimes we're lucky where the coping mechanisms are good. Like I had good friends, good exercise habits. So I kind of landed on my feet in a sense. I had other bad coping mechanisms, but that was more like thinking patterns and stuff like that. And we touched on it a little bit before, but you stumbled across coping mechanisms that are going to take us into this next phase of your life in a sense. What were the first coping mechanisms? And then, how did they build throughout that traumatic time that you experienced?
So movement, right?
Yeah.
Just getting out the door and walking with my son. And then when I moved, I thought that was like a new beginning, and I needed to fill my time because I'm not very good like you with the unhelpful thinking style, so too much in here, in your head. So I discovered running, and I felt good. Like, sure, some days I really didn't feel like running, and I'd be like, oh, God, I don't want to do it. But I sort of said to myself, just 5 minutes out the door, and that was my little mantra. Or the other mantra was feet on the floor, out the door.
Feet on the floor, out the door.
Yeah, and so 5 minutes, and if I was feeling crappy after 5 minutes, go home. But guess what? I never went home. I just kept going. Yeah, so
it's a good trick.
Yeah, and it was just about how to get this little horrible thinking style, or like I like to give like the unhelpful thinking styles a name. So you can give your person in your head a name like Karen or whatever name you want, and you can tell Karen to go away.
Sorry to the Karens out there. Yeah.
Sorry, Karen.
They're already getting a rough shake.
I know.
Yeah.
We'll have to come up with a new name.
Yeah.
But telling that person in your head to just go away for a minute and quieten down, and that's sort of what I started to do.
That's interesting. I've got 3 kids.
Okay.
And one of them, Jimmy, is let's say he's very careful, like his dad when he was a kid, like his dad now, a bit risk oriented. And I've started to teach him to say, "Shut up, brain. I'm going to do it anyway."
There you go. Okay, you've got your own version.
So it's quite funny hearing a 5-year-old.
Yeah, I love
Shut
that.
up, brain. I'm going to do it anyway.
I love that, but that's what we need to instill, these tools for life in our children and ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Because our brain stops us from doing so much, and as an occupational therapist, and with that lens, I'm always about try first, then decide. Try a new hobby, try a new occupation, whatever it is. Give yourself a chance to try it and experience it before you just shut down an idea. So I think, I love that phrase that you've got. Have
a crack, see what happens.
Yep.
You just lit up when you were speaking about these things.
Yeah.
You're obviously passionate about it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's through then, this is the lovely segue where when I did become an occupational therapist, I worked in an acute mental health setting. And so it's, people present in ED in crisis, you kind of help them to bed things down, but it's just that one point in time. And I also looked after people in the community who were past the crisis stage, but they were still unwell. And I saw that movement with them just changed them and they lit up too. And I'd have people presenting at ED to come and ask me to go for a walk with them.
Yeah.
Because again, movement, right? This passive way of engaging in nature and moving made us feel good. Yeah.
Yeah, you've made me think about something that I wrote down for you. But I can't find it. But what it was you were at a point where you started to take people out of the clinical setting and for a walk down by the river.
Yeah.
And you said you felt like you were a little bit worried that it was unprofessional.
Yeah.
But then those fears were immediately quelled, if that's the word, because you could just see the impact it was having in real time. And that side by side and the walls were coming down.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how I don't know what the question is, but how are you finding the contrast between clinical and practical?
Yeah, and that's what I found really interesting. You know, I was in a rural New South Wales town, and, you know, you'd have this sort of people that would present, you know, and you could see the little pattern. I can seem to identify patterns in people for some reason.
Yeah.
That's my superpower. But I just noticed that by saying, hey, we're going to walk down to the river, it was almost like we became two people just going, well, we did become two people going for a walk, but it changed the clinician and client role, and we became just two people having a chat. And there was so much doubt that I was not being professional, you're right, and that I wrote about it in the book. And what I was seeing was that people were starting to thrive. You know, they were then going to the gym, they were meeting friends for coffee, all by me taking it out of this white clinical setting that is cognitively overbearing. You've got bright lights, you've got hospital sounds. And then when you go into nature, you can hear the rhythmic movement of the river. You hear, you know, your footsteps, you can hear birds, and all of that kind of brings down our nervous system. And that, from a scientific perspective, is that soft fascination. So, you know, and I can talk about all the science, but that's in our DNA as humans, right? And we've forgotten that. And we're so smart with technology and being indoors, but the simplest thing that we have and the thing that's always there is nature and being outside, and we've forgotten. So, yeah, I think it's my job is to help people remember, and with Running for Resilience, outdoors is our friend.
Well, it's the perfect segue again. This book is, I guess, the next chapter that followed. It kind of is putting in everything you've been through, everything you went through went into sort of this real-world application with the work that you did, and then you've weaved it all together from an academic setting.
Yeah.
What is Thrive in Nature?
Yeah, so what I sort of discovered, and I guess this is my beautiful Running for Resilience part too, was that when I left acute mental health, I discovered R4R, you know, many years ago. And that was for me to switch my brain off and to be out and co-regulate with people. And then I started social prescribing, and I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but basically instead of giving people a prescription for a medication or to do therapies, it's telling people your script is to go out for a walk for 5 minutes.
That's great.
And so I started recommending R4R because for the neurodiverse population I work with, they need to know, is there a toilet? What's the sound like? What time is it? Is there places to go if it's raining? So they need all these questions answered. And the beauty of R4R is that it's expected. The same thing happens every week, the same format, the same sort of intro. There are friendly people to greet you. So all of these worries and concerns kind of dissipated for people, and they kept turning up. And I was like, what is this secret sauce at R4R? And I need to know more about it, right? And so I had this magnet on my fridge for 3 years. So I went to the World Federation Occupational Therapy Conference in 2022, and Boston Uni were doing a doctoral degree in OT. And I had it on my fridge for 3 years. And then I got an email about an information session. I thought, oh, maybe I need to find out about R4R and study a doctorate. So I enrolled at Boston Uni and got in, to my surprise, and started studying why nature and people with neurodiversity and intellectual disabilities were responding. In particular, with at the back of my mind was R4R. I'm like, what is the source here? I need to find the answer.
What is the source?
Well, it's that consistency.
Yeah.
It's also having the understanding of the environment. So what is the flora and the fauna? It's also having an understanding of the expectation. Do I have to run? Do I have to walk? And understanding that, but also that they can choose to participate or not. So they could choose to walk or not. They can have an ability to have their own autonomy, but still be part of the group. And with all the clients that I work with, so I work with adult population, all of my neurodiverse clients want to make friends and they just didn't know how. But somehow, and I still haven't got the answer to this, somehow that secret sauce at R4R is the friendship and the communities, right? And seeing someone and just saying hello or making eye contact. And I think that's part of it too, is the community aspect.
Yeah.
And I think that connection with others is so integral to success of R4R when you look at other running programs or communities around. It's the friendship and the communities there.
Yeah. I mean, I've got to say, living down the coast, I miss a lot about Canberra, but a lot about R4R. One of the things I miss most is that little community of neurodiverse people. Oh man, the smile on Paulie's face whenever he's wearing his merch, he's just rocking up. He's great. And then maybe my favourite day was World Down Syndrome Day.
Yes.
Where Kayla got up and spoke in front of everyone. Joe gave us a big bad rev up. It was just, I left that evening on top of the world.
Me too. And, Kayla and I worked on what she was going to say through this natural conversation, and she was so proud to do that. And the fact that she also brought her boyfriend along and he was there cheering her along, it was like my little heart was glowing so much. I was so proud. But that inclusivity part, that's really important because they want the same things that all neurotypical people want. They want to feel loved, they want to be belonging, they want to be the best they can, and they want community. And I think that's so important. Yeah.
I was thinking about, because I really like their company.
Yeah.
Like neurodiverse, I really enjoy, like kids as well. And I think what it comes down to is it's just such a genuine, authentic, but base level operating system in a sense. It's like you talk about the things that they want to square off before they come. It's like, is there a toilet? Is it predictable? What's the expectation? It's like, it's actually things that everyone thinks about.
That's right.
But a lot of us just go, I'll worry about it later.
That's right.
And it's, I just think there's like a little clue in there in that it's a very, in a good way, simplistic view of R4R. And the more we can make those things as simple and as easy as possible, the better experience everyone's going to have.
That's right. And that's, also our sensory system, so our nervous system scans that environment for threats before our brain catches up with what's happening. It's always scanning, are we safe? What do I do if I'm not safe? And I think with R4R, you've got the water, so blue therapy, and there's lots of emerging research around the benefits of being near water for humans. You've got the green therapy, which is being out in nature to help regulate us. And so R4R is helping us to develop, autonomic flexibility, our ability to come back to that regulated state over and over again through understanding the environment, but through that beautiful rhythmic movement of walking or running.
Yeah.
And that's all the key elements of it. It's just an amazing thing to have.
It's cool to hear. But let's zoom out. Let's talk about this. So thrive.
Yeah.
Thrive in nature. Thrive isn't just exceeding.
No.
It's an acronym.
Yes.
What for?
So basically, I developed a roadmap for people to have little bits of tools in their toolkit, and I talk about this all the time. It's not a physical toolkit. It's tools that we need and have as humans. And so what I started to do was unpack how I was using nature to regulate myself, but what I've been researching at a doctoral level as well. And so Thrive is an acronym, and we don't all get to the same destination by following the same roadmap. We might take different ways. So Thrive is a series of moves that people can do, pardon me, in everyday life to help them to feel good, to function well. And so I have a whole framework that I've developed, and you can be active in nature or you can be passive in nature. So Thrive stands for a few different things. That's in the book.
Tune in.
Yes, tune in is the first one.
Harness nature.
Yes.
Regulate.
Yep.
Integrate. Visualize and value,
Yep.
and then expand.
Yeah, and you don't have to move through all those steps in that order. You might start when you're looking at thriving yourself. What are my values and my vision? What do I want to do? Whether it's I actually just want to be able to move and walk around outside without having a panic attack.
Yep.
Or my values might be that I value integrity and kindness. So I'm going to start being, greeting people at the supermarket. So the roadmap itself is not to work through in a circle, it's to take elements of it and weave it into your daily life. And that's where, just tuning into nature. It might be starting a new habit, like in the morning, looking out the window or having a glass of water outside or taking a phone call and walking around the block. So it's about how we can use nature in everyday life to help us to regulate and come back to that rest and digest. If we start using our nervous system to help regulate, and the more times that we can come back to that safe state, the more able we're able to function in our daily lives as well, so that we're not stuck in fight or flight or freeze.
Yeah. And I guess, I'm already kind of just applying these to myself, but seeing it in your story too. Tune in. You obviously tuning into the environment around you.
Exactly.
Like you said. But as you were getting through, as it was stretching out and you were getting more fatigued, you started to tune into how close to burnout you were.
Oh, big time.
And now you would be able to notice the flags, which makes it easier for you to say no to a certain commitment or things like that.
That's a work in progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because I know at the end of the day I like people pleasing, and so for me to say no is really challenging. But yeah, identifying the signs for burnout, because that's what nature helps us do, is 5 minutes in nature helps relieve anxiety and depression. And even if you're feeling super tired, going for a walk can help wake you up. But I know that if I am really, really tired, I know that I need to pare back, I need to scale back on things. And saying no is a really active process for me to say no to, because it's so hard.
Which is made easier by the V
That's right.
part of it. So values,
Yeah.
defining, I guess, who you are as a person or what you value.
Yeah, and boundaries come into values as well, right? And being confident and competent in yourself to say no, that doesn't align with what I'm working on now. Maybe it did in the past, but no, not right yet.
Yeah. And these things, they help you regulate, but what's integrate? Can you...
Yeah, it's about how you can weave little sips of nature into your daily life, which I spoke about. And integrate is really about being more active in our intentional use of nature, so that we can, we might take a walk around the block a little bit longer when we park the car to integrate nature into our lives. Or it might be that we play with the kids a bit longer outside. So it's about how we can weave these little moments in nature into our daily occupations.
Yeah. It does. It makes such a difference being in nature. And I think I can see it so clearly with kids.
Yeah.
With my kids, that is you can just see them light up.
Exactly.
I'm taking Jim. Jim's caught 4 fish before I've caught my first. So he's doing quite well. But it's partly because I just love watching.
Yeah.
He's just in the zone. He's just casting.
Yeah.
He's just there. And I'm like, that's so cool.
Right.
That's so cool that he is just not a care in the world.
Yep.
And so he'll be a fisherman for life.
That's called the flow state from
Yeah.
a scientific perspective, right? When you are engaged in that activity, nothing else is happening, you're just so focused. That's where the state that we should try to be at, right?
Yeah.
Is being one with ourselves and just being part of that occupation. But when you unpack fishing, you've got your vision input, you've got the sound, you've got your body position. There's so many sensory systems engaged, giving you all those beautiful cues to our brain, our operating system, that we are okay and we are safe and we're regulated.
Yeah.
And so, fishing as an occupation is a great de-stressor.
Yeah. I'm going to have to get over my seasickness because he's going to love it. I think this is a really important one. It's expand.
Yeah.
I want to use the example with that neurodiverse community, but I think also anyone. One of the things we've realised with Wednesday is that big crowds can be lonely sometimes, and they can be intimidating. And it represents a little bit of a behaviour I think we can all be a bit better at, is that when something is up there that scares us, we kind of need to find ways to walk towards it.
Yeah.
But in a way that doesn't overextend us, which is, I think, what you speak about.
Exactly. And it's, you know, checking in with yourself, that interoceptive awareness of like my heart's starting to race, or I've got this feeling in my gut where I'm going to be sick. And it's really tuning in to how we are, but also looking at the cues that our brain is telling us, you know, when we start to wake up from sleep and we're like, oh, I'm still thinking about that thing, you know, how do we shut that off? And how do we then, I guess, move past that so it doesn't hold us up and brings us back to that regulated state? Yeah, it's really tricky.
You said earlier in this interview or conversation that now feels like your best self, in a sense. Like you feel like you're where you're meant to be and you're going where you want to go. Where's this taken you?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Well, what am I doing? So I'm like weeks away from becoming a doctoral graduate from Boston Uni.
So you're weeks away from being doctor?
Yeah, I'll be Dr. Nanny, thanks.
Dr. Nanny.
Because I'm a grandma as well.
Well done.
Yeah, so
Put your hand up on a plane if anyone needs help.
No.
No.
I don't do blood and vomit and anything else, okay? That's why I'm not a nurse or a real doctor.
Yeah.
I'm a doctor of occupational therapy. So my research has been really interesting, and my clinical supervisor, who's the head of the program at Boston, she has been so supportive. So I did a pilot study with a small group of participants, and that's some of the interesting evidence. So a lot of the evidence came out of COVID for people with neurodiversity, because that was our only safe occupation, and they discovered nature and walking in nature. But what the evidence shows is that it's small groups in nature.
Small groups.
Yeah, for neurodiverse people, right? So 3 or 4 people in a group. That's probably as big, because some people have sensory defensiveness or auditory avoiding behaviours. So loud noises kind of stimulate people. So I started doing a pilot study about nature. And so what I do is I meet with people in the community. We do a mood check-in before we go out on our walk, and then a mood check-in after. And this is teaching them how to understand their moods, because generally speaking, a lot of neurodiverse people don't really understand our moods or understand the moods of other people or facial expression. So I'm trying to teach people how to regulate. So they might turn up and say, I've got one client who says, I'm feeling neutral, which means she's okay.
I can hear the voice. Yeah, that's so good.
But at the end of the walk, they feel good, or they feel happy, or they feel relaxed, or another one, she says, I feel spiritual.
Spiritual.
Right? But what this does and what it shows is that through the walk in my program, they're able to identify changes in their body. So my pilot study sort of developed a little template of how we can engage in nature. So as a group, we decide where we go. We do a meditation, so educating people around breathwork, because we know through breathing it helps with our brain and it helps regulate our nervous system. We also do nature art, and then we check in. But what that really showed me was having these expected, regular, again, like R4R activities in nature, the people are coming back.
Yeah.
And so that's been my study. And so I've presented that at the American Aspire conference last year in Philadelphia. I presented the research again in Australia at the Australian Occupational Therapy Conference, and then I've just come back from the World Federation Conference in Bangkok presenting my research on nature to the world stage. So it's exciting and nervous at the same time that someone from Canberra is looking at nature and why people with neurodiversity need it.
Well, it's funny you've just labelled those two emotions, exciting and nervous, because I remember, I think it was 2019, it was a penny drop moment where it was in the lead up to the Canberra Raiders playing in the grand final.
Okay.
And I would just get flutters of this sensation in my chest.
Yeah.
And I was very clearly associating it with excitement.
Yeah.
Then I was like, you know what? That feels almost identical to when I was going through the hardest time in my life. That big sensation in the chest. It's just like this. It's a bit of a fight or flight.
Yeah.
I was like, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Sometimes all you need is how you interpret the information.
Exactly.
So only excitement.
Yeah.
And nerves mean you care.
Yeah.
But how's it been received? How's the information been received?
Really positively. So I'm actually looking to, this is my ultimate goal, right, is I want to educate other occupational therapists around the world on how they can normalise and use nature in their everyday practice. So I'm developing an online program for people to learn how to use Nature for Life, which is the program, and how to then apply the Thrive framework to their clinical settings.
It's great. And it's something that R4R is finding is we're not trying to diminish the complexities and the specifics of certain types of treatment. They all have their place. We're just trying to emphasise what we know works.
Exactly.
In tandem with the other things.
Exactly.
And Benny's actually been really articulate in how he's speaking about the nervous system and how that kind of is, maybe it should be used more in tandem with mental health. For at least some conditions. And I just think what you're doing with bringing it back to the basics almost, and it seems to work.
Yeah, and I think too, before we can build resilience psychologically, we need to develop it physiologically, right? So being able to go for a walk for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, go for a 2-minute run, that physical resilience will help us cognitively in the long run. And I think that's what we need to keep emphasising, that it's not about getting your best run or getting the best time. It's about turning up and tuning into yourself time and time again so we can become regulated and have that flexibility, because we as humans experience all emotions and it's not normal to just be flatlining all the time. We need to go the up and down, but to return to safety that's the superpower part of how we can regulate ourselves, and that co-regulation at R4R is important.
And it's a belief that you can get back to that point where you feel good, isn't it?
Exactly. Homeostasis.
It might take a little bit longer,
Yep.
but I know that I'll get there eventually.
Yeah, and then tuning into your little butterflies and like, I'm holding my breath, okay, relax the shoulders and breathe.
And at least it mitigates it somewhat. Might not fix it.
No.
But at least it gives you a sense of control.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes half the battle. Shannon, I got 2 questions for you. One is because it's so good to hear that you're thriving, to use a proper word. What would you tell yourself if you could go back to when you were in that traumatic period of life that you spoke about earlier in the podcast?
That's a really good question. I would say, believe in yourself. You know it's not right. You can do this, Yeah.
It's great. That's a great message I think anyone can hear.
Yeah.
And the last question is, if you could interview anyone on this podcast, or if you want someone to come onto the podcast, we like chucking it out in the universe, who would you want? Who would you like to see on the R4R podcast?
Oh, God, that's a really good question. You know who I love listening to? Robert D. Costella.
Oh, Deeks.
Yeah, I love his metaphor when he talks about, running as a metaphor for life. You've got to keep pushing up the hill and you'll get there eventually, and then you can coast down. I love the way he speaks.
He's great. I was so shocked and what's the word? Like, so happy to realise that there was like this world champion runner from Australia with just a big moustache roaming around. I was like, how is this man not more of a cultural icon? This is just incredible. So yeah, maybe we'll get him on because it's definitely up our alley.
Okay, yeah, and he's a local too.
Yeah, well, maybe you'll interview him. We'll see.
We'll
but
see.
Shannon, thank you so much. Can people read this? How can they?
So Thrive in Nature is available on Amazon. If you just Google Thrive in Nature, you should find it there.
Beauty. Well, we'll put it in the show notes as well, but thank you very much. It was a tough discussion as well, but also a very good one.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Hooroo.
Hooroo.